Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another Walking Dead video from the channel Ty Swell. Now, the title of the video is The Confusing Timeline of the Walking Dead Universe Explored. And the timeline can get pretty confusing because The Walking Dead alone had quite a few different time jumps and stuff like that. And now, of course, we got all these different spin-offs. So, when does everything take place? You know, it has been pretty confusing, so hopefully we'll finally learn what the timeline is in this video. Alright, so yeah, let's just jump right in and learn about the Walking Dead timeline. Here we go.
Alright folks, now as most of you already know, the passage of time has always been pretty vague in the Walking Dead universe. Whether that's due to young characters such as Carl aging rapidly, some seasons only taking place over a couple weeks, or just a general lack of attention paid to the continuity. But since the announcement Dead City Season 2 will feature yet another time skip after the first season, which is already said to be half a decade ahead of any other spin-off, I've been seeing this confusion on where everything's at more and more frequently. So today, I'm going to take on the daunting task of attempting to lay out this timeline as accurately as I can by using in-universe and outside evidence when necessary. Now, a few things to mention before we get started which are extremely important. Basically, anytime a time card is on screen directly saying how much time has passed, it's inaccurate. I say that with confidence because no matter whose timeline you follow, Here's Negan is not 12 years in, and Michonne's journey in The Ones Who Live doesn't begin 6 years after the bridge, which I'll take you through how I came to that conclusion step by step. Next, it's hard to create a video like this without addressing other timelines that have been created. Specifically, probably the most popular one on the Walking Dead wiki, as naturally, mine will be compared to it. However, I'll say right now, the dates I came to at some points, especially towards the end of the series, are pretty off from theirs. I came to roughly the same times for the first 8 seasons, but once we start getting into the time jumps, there's a few placements I disagree with that could really affect where we put things. No shade to them or anything, this is a messy timeline to put together, and I seriously respect the effort put in, but mine does look different, so I felt I should address that. And lastly, nothing here is ever going to be 100% accurate. We are never really shown any calendars, and definitive date markers are rare. So I will put an estimation symbol by each date given, but again, it shouldn't be off by more than a couple months by the end if you follow how I went about counting it. But with that, if you end up enjoying this video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you hit that like button. This was a really tough one to put together, so if you want to see more content like this, definitely hit that sub button as well. Now, as discussed extensively across my channel, we know for a fact the day the world ended, or the day society officially fell, was August 27th, 2010. As confirmed by AMC themselves through multiple social media posts, which I can't thank them enough for doing. This wasn't the earliest point a walker was seen among society. That honor goes to 2 days before, on the 25th, as shown in Fear. But it was the day schools and businesses shut down for good, while the power went out as the military was deployed across the country. Which we've gathered happened simultaneously across the planet, evident from the cosmonaut spoken to by Victor Strand in Fear, mentioning he watched the lights go out across the world all on the same night. Dr. Jenner in The Walking Dead Season 1 mentions it's been 194 days since wildfire was declared, and 63 days since the outbreak abruptly went global as of the season finale. If we take either the 25th or 27th as the day he considered the virus to have abruptly went global 63 days prior to his recording, wildfire was discovered by the Atlanta CDC between April 16th and 18th, 2010. Now, by tracking the day and night cycle and stated time jumps within Fear Season 1, we can determine orders for soldiers to evacuate American cities were given on the night of September 9th, while the actual bombings of Operation Cobalt, an attempt by the military to exterminate the dead with napalm in every major metropolitan area in the country, occurred on the morning of the 10th. That's where we learned about the guy from Commonwealth doing that. Now, with the information given by Dr. Jenner taken into account, We know the CDC blew up on day 64 of the outbreak regardless of what date the dead actually began to walk, as our survivors spend a full night within before decontamination. Meaning Rick Grimes woke up on day 59 as we see him spend 5 full days out of the hospital before this point. In between the events of Monument Day and the explosion at the CDC, the entire first 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead take place. It's been widely accepted by fans that the dam in the season 3 finale exploded the same day as the CDC. However, I can't find any evidence of anybody actually ever stating this. In fact, Dave Erickson during an interview before the airing of Fear Season 2 actually stated Rick woke up 4 to 5 weeks after the outbreak, which we know just isn't the case. So it seems like everyone was working with a pretty vague timeline, especially around this point. However, if I'm being honest, it does kind of line up if you track how many days passed throughout these seasons. So it might not have been exactly the same day, but I'd imagine these events would have been pretty close to each other. Now, the timeline for the show's season 2 is pretty vague, as I can't say for certain if a day or two passes off screen between some episodes. But through evidence within this and future seasons, I'd be comfortable saying the events within only take place between 2 to 3 weeks. Lori finds out she's pregnant in episode 6. 11 episodes since the last time she and Shane could have been together, and by the end of the season, she still isn't showing. So it's not like they were on the farm for 3 or 4 months. We see the weather growing colder by the second half of the season, which coincides with George's temperature dropping around mid to late November. So I'd say the ending of season 2 puts us roughly 2.5 to 3 months into the outbreak. Probably closer to the 2.5 month mark. However, as we move on to season 3, we get our...
Can you just imagine being Rick? Like in the first 5 days... Well, yeah, that's what he said. Like the first 5 days after waking up out of a coma, was pretty much all of season 1. How crazy is that to experience all that in just 5 days? That...
first time jump of about 7.5 months as we pick up with our survivors having conquered the winter and are nearing the birth of Lori's baby. The prisoners mention having been locked in the cafeteria by a guard when things went crazy between 292 to 294 days ago, which we can assume was Monument Day, putting us roughly 10 months into the outbreak, which lines up pretty close with what we determined for Season 2. The events of Season 3, at the very most, occurred over a month to a month and a half, as in the Season 4 finale, we get flashbacks to our survivors' time farming at the prison, where Herschel mentions they'd been there for 2 months already.
In a month.
We know Rick didn't start farming until after the confrontation with the governor, so the ending of Season 3 puts us roughly 1 year in. Season 4's premiere gives us yet another 6-month time jump as we see the prison has become a thriving community, having survived through the winter. However, this is where you see the timeline really start to slow down in terms of months covered. Here, we see the first half of the season take place over less than a week as we're taken through the flu outbreak day by day, concluding on the destruction of the prison, which occurred the same day Rick banished Carol 3 episodes prior. The time in between the prison attack and Terminus is actually only a couple weeks as well. We know Rick, Carl, and Michonne spent a handful of days inside that house the Claimers invade as Rick healed up, and for the most part, everyone was only a day or two behind each other on the road to Terminus. So plugging in the distance to walk from Atlanta to Macon, which is roughly the distance they traveled, it's only a couple days journey if you don't stop. So even if they all took their sweet time getting there, it would have only been a couple weeks since...
Okay, so that's actually kind of interesting. Okay, so from Atlanta all the way down there is 82 miles. Now I kind of really want to go back to my other video I did of like the distance travel and stuff like that to really see the actual distance, because I mean, if you're looking at the map and it's showing like Alexandria, Hilltop, Kingdom and stuff like that, like those communities, if just going by this little map right here and between like 82 and what's that, 90 miles is just that, then like the distance between like Alexandria and like the kingdom, like, wow. Like, because that's far. That's a distance. That's a distance from that other video and stuff like that. So, wow. I kind of thought like some of these communities were actually a little bit closer together. I kind of thought Alexandria, Hilltop, Kingdom, were all not too close, but close. You know what I mean? But after seeing this map here and then thinking back to the other video, yeah, the distance from like Alexandria to the kingdom, it's gonna be like at least a good 100 miles apart. That's kind of crazy to think now. Man, they traveled.
It's only a couple days journey if you don't stop, so even if they all took their sweet time getting there, it would have only been a couple weeks since the prison at most. And the whole Hunters encounter, along with the hospital arc, only occur over the course of 2 or 3 days, so come 508,
wow.
We're roughly 1 year, 7 months into the outbreak. Now, in
took
between
2 or
the
3
mid-season
days to do
finale
that
and
whole
premiere, Greg
storyline?
Nicotero allegedly mentioned on Talking Dead it took our survivors 17 days to reach Noah's community from Atlanta. We can assume the journey
days?
from Richmond to Alexandria then took another week, as we can see a few days pass on screen before reaching the safe zone. However, from 512 all the way to 609, we really pumped the brakes, as this span of episodes only takes place over less than 2 weeks. The first half of Season 6 in particular only covering about 2 or 3 days total. In particular, pump the brakes 12 all the way to 609, we really pumped the brakes, as this span of episodes only takes place over less than 2 weeks. The first
2 weeks? 2 weeks. If that is actually true, 512 to 609, 2 weeks. What the hell? That is crazy. So let me see. What else? Walking Dead Season 5. Okay, so what else happened between Episode 12 and we'll say the end of that season? Okay, so what else happened? 512, Rick's group turns over their weapons before meeting with Alexandria. Okay, so this is when they arrive at Alexandria and stuff like that. Rick's group is welcomed in the community. Rick, Daryl, and Carol meet privately to discuss how to recover their stash of weapons. Abraham takes control of Alexandria's construction crew. Glenn almost saves Noah before panicking. Nicholas sacrifices himself to the walkers to escape. Nicholas falsely blames Glenn for the deaths of Aiden and Noah, leading to Deanna to confiscate Rick's group's firearms. Tensions escalate. Pete interrupts, leading them to the fight. Okay. Deanna prepares to hold a meeting and stuff like that, and that is when Rick kills Deanna's husband. So all that happens at the end between 512 and 516. Wow. And then if we jump into Season 6, Season 6, okay. What happened up to like the first 9 episodes of Season 6? Okay, so we do the parade. They find the walkers in the quarry and stuff like that, and then we do that whole parade. The wolves attack. Then we have the thank you. That's where, the Glenn Nicholas situation. Okay, so we have a flashback with Morgan and stuff like that. Eastman, okay. Episode 5. Rick returns to Alexandria Bailey how the Walker herd. So the Walker herd's still out there. While helping leading Walker herd away from Alexandria, Daryl is separated from Sasha. Daryl tries to recruit his captors. Oh, okay, but they steal his crossbow. So that's when. So Daryl also meets Why am I drawing a blank? Dwight. He meets Dwight. After hiding from the herd, Glenn encounters Enid, brings her back, start to finish. With the wall breached, walkers invade Alexandria, and then, of course, No Way Out. And all that takes place in 2 weeks? Damn. That is crazy if that is absolutely true. That all that stuff, happened in just about 2 weeks. So we arrive at Alexandria, Rick and what's his name fight and stuff like that. They have their guns confiscated. Then they're welcomed into Alexandria. Rick kills Deanna's husband, and then of course the group takes over. They're going out on the runs. The wolves attack. That's just crazy. If all that happened in just 2 weeks, that's crazy.
Less than 2 weeks. The first half of season 6 in particular only covering about 2 or 3 days total. There is something important to note here, however. In 605, we officially learn Maggie is pregnant, which is going to be our most telling piece of evidence for time passed over the next arc, as, in case you didn't notice, by the end of All Out War in Season 8, she still doesn't even have a baby bump. This is made even worse when you realize there's a 1-month time jump in between No Way Out and the Next World, evident from Abraham mentioning their first encounter with the Saviors took place a month ago. It can vary from person to person, but a woman typically begins showing around the start of the second trimester. So if at least 6 weeks had already passed by the Next World, the end of the war, at the very most, took place in between roughly 50 to 100 days after. Although, that would be if she was showing in 816. She isn't, so it was more than likely closer to the 50 days mark or lower. Meaning, the satellite outpost attack, the lineup, Negan's rule over Alexandria, the march to war, and all-out war took place over less than 2 months. Putting us just under 2 years post-outbreak once you add up all the weeks passed here and there. Yeah, crazy. I knew it wasn't a lot of time passed.
That is... Wow. So basically learning about the Saviors, attacking the Savior satellite outpost, the lineup, Negan's entire rule, combining getting all Hilltop, Alexandria Kingdom together, and having the war. All that in 2 months? Wow. Man. I don't think that's a world I'd want to live in, because that would just be absolutely crazy, just to have all that stuff happen in just 2 months. It'd be different. It was that took place, I don't know, over an entire year or something like that. But the fact that all of that just happened in 2 months, all of that.
But even I was under the impression All Out War was around the 2.5-year mark. But if my calculations are correct, we're barely reaching 2 years in. This is usually pretty shocking to people who first hear it, as Carl in particular ages 8 years in 2, but that's just what happens when you have kid actors on long-running shows.
Of course.
Judith's age is a much better way to track the time in these seasons, as they regularly switched out the actresses. But even then, saying this is the same kid but only 4 months later is pretty crazy, but I'll let it slide. Now, this is where Fear the Walking Dead picks up again, with Morgan joining the reboot following the war. However, the timeline of Season 4 is seriously all over the place. In between the dam explosion and Morgan's arrival in Texas, the Clarks had built and lost a home within an abandoned stadium. It's presumed from the time Morgan moves into the junkyard till the time he comes across John Dory in Texas, roughly 3 months had passed since the war. But to be honest, it's all pretty vague.
I mean, that's still
we know
not
there's a
too bad.
10-month time jump between seasons 4 and 5, and a few 1-month time jumps here and there in the following seasons. But besides that, the timeline proceeds pretty linearly. So, from what's been estimated by the fanbase by using Baby Mo's growth as a marker, Morgan spent just under 2 years within Texas between Fear Season 4 and the end of Season 7, putting this point in Fear around just under 4 years into the outbreak total.
Wow.
However, come Season 9 of the main show, we come back down to a more concrete timeline.
Okay.
At least for a bit, as we pick up approximately 18 months after the war's end, putting us just under 3.5 years in by the time of the
So
new
a significant
beginning,
time jump.
where we then see yet another 35-day jump in between episodes 1 and 2, getting us just about at that 3.5-year mark. But come the disappearance of Rick Grimes in episode 5, we jump approximately 6 additional years into the future, putting the timeline as of 906 roughly 9.5 years in.
Wow.
In between this time is where we see the children of Alexandria's kidnapping by Jocelyn around 8 months after Rick's disappearance, and the relationship between Daryl and Leah develop and end. Now, this is where I believe I found the main discrepancy on the wiki, as it lists Season 9, Episode 6 as taking place around day 3708, which would put us roughly 10 years, 2 months in. However, what I think happened here is they counted the 6-year time jump as having started from the incident with Jocelyn, when from my understanding, it should be 6 years from the bridge incident. So I'm just gonna stick with where we're at so far. But the rest of Season 9, including the Whisperer's introduction and Fair Massacre, occurs over a couple weeks. However, come the season finale, we briefly jump what's speculated to be around 3 months during a...
So... Wow, just a couple of weeks from the Whisperers to the Whisperer Massacre. It's just a couple of weeks. Jeez, that is...
brutal snowstorm. Evident from Ezekiel stating it's been a hard few months for he and Carol following Henry's death. Which
so we
would
got a little
put us
bit more
around
time
9
right there.
years, 9 months.
Okay.
However, this kind of brings up an issue, as that places the storm in May of 2020. Which, I mean, is possible, but pretty rare. So either Virginia's weather was wild in this universe's 2020, nobody considered continuity when dropping that line, or I'm off by a few months. At this point, I'm sure you're beginning to see how confusing this can get.
Yeah.
This is the only time the show attempted a winter episode.
I mean, unless you can kind of like spin it, I don't know. I don't know what something like an event like this would do. Well, no, never mind.
Due to their filming schedule, so I've just kind of assumed it was a continuity error. But what should be shortly after is where we see the events of World Beyond occur. To be exact, Monument Day 2020.
Monument Day.
Approximately 10 years after the outbreak, as we see the campus colony celebrating their prosperity. The series finale of the show directly shows us it's been 2 months since the Endlings left the campus colony, putting that show's final episode at 10 years, 2 months in, regardless of any external discrepancies. Season 10 begins months after the Season 9 finale, as we pick up with no snow to be seen. It isn't explicitly stated how much time passed, but judging by Rosita looking a good 6 to 7 months pregnant as of the storm, having found out herself to be expecting many episodes prior, and Season 10 picking up with Coco already being 3 months old, evident from Eugene's chart, I'd estimate around 5 to 6 months passed since 9/16. It's a bit foggier to determine than earlier seasons, but this would put us around 10 years, 2 to 3 months into the outbreak, which places us around October, November 2020. Kind of odd for what looks to be the summertime, if you ask me. Seasonal weather was never really a great way to determine time frames anyway.
This was due to their filming schedule starting in spring and lasting until the late fall. 4/16, 5/02, 2 days apart. I mean, they usually started filming like April to like right before Thanksgiving, when I used to take care of all the filming videos and stuff like that. It's like they're filming like right up to like Thanksgiving, and the week before Thanksgiving it's like the final episode. So
and they clearly just really wanted to do a snow episode.
Yeah,
The rest of Season 10
finally,
and first
snow.
part of Season 11, including the Whisperer War and entire Reaper arc, seem to take place pretty linearly. There are no major jumps in time, as we see Coco remain around the same age throughout the season. Even
Okay.
Eugene's journey to meet the Commonwealth only took a few days, so I'd estimate the Cold War and Whisperer War itself lasted around a month, while the immediate
Okay.
aftermath and the entire Reaper arc was probably around the same, maybe a bit less. Episode 1022,
Okay, it's still not
here's Negan has a
too
time
bad.
card stating it's been at least 12 years since the outbreak. But no matter what way you spin it, this is not accurate. Too many kids have been born and raised with their ages accounted for with the time jumps, so this just can't possibly be right. And it
Okay.
actually makes a problem with the timeline later on even worse, so it's getting ignored. So I'm gonna say Season 11 Part 1 ends around 10 years, 5 months in. And thankfully,
Wow.
from here we get a definitive statement 6 months
6 months
passed
later.
in between the Commonwealth's arrival at Alexandria and Season 11 Episode 16 as titled on screen. And everything from that point, being the annexation of the Coalition to the Commonwealth Revolution, occurs over roughly a week or so, putting the overthrowing of Governor Pamela Milton at around 10 years, 11 months in, which you could probably just round to 11 years with how
week?
vague these last seasons were. 11 Episode 16 as titled on screen. And everything from that point, being the annexation of the Coalition to the Commonwealth Revolution, occurs over roughly a week or so, putting the overthrowing of Governor
A
Pamela
week?
Milton at around 10 years, 11 months in, which you
Wow.
could probably just round to 11 years with how vague these
Wow.
last seasons were. Exhausted yet? Well, we're still not done.
Oh, God.
Fear the Walking Dead Season 8 is said to
I
take
can't believe that
place 7
Commonwealth
years
stuff.
after Season 7, which
A
would
week.
conclude that show roughly around 11 years in, maybe a couple months less. So as the Coalition was getting familiar with the Commonwealth, Morgan and company were dealing with Padre and shortly after Troy Otto as well. The final moments of Season 11 portray the state of the Commonwealth 1 year after the Revolution, where we see everyone largely at peace, as
Okay.
the main show concludes roughly 12 years post-outbreak,
Wow.
give or take a couple months, with the prospect of Daryl heading out on his bike to explore what's out there.
Yep.
But again, we're not done. As you all know, we have 3 new era spin-offs
Yes,
to
we
cover,
do.
which are all just as messy in timeline placement as you'd expect.
Oh, boy.
Actually, they're kind of the worst offenders, if I'm being honest. Starting out with the ones who live, as it should take place first, we see Michonne depart from the Coalition on her search for Rick in Season 10, Episode 13,
Okay.
which I gathered was about 10 years, 4 months in.
All right.
Although, Episode 2 flashes on screen a 6 years after the bridge card, which we know just can't be right, as there was a 6-year time jump after the bridge, and an entire baby was developed and born before Michonne left, so I'm gonna ignore this. Meaning, in reality, Michonne's journey began around 7 years after Rick's disappearance. However, a few weeks after said departure, she, along with her new friends, are bombed by the CRM with chlorine gas, where she and Nat then spend yet another entire year recovering in hiding. During the 8 years Rick's been missing, he was subjected to consignee work, which had him on the outskirts of Philadelphia for years, where he attempted to escape many times. The last time taking place a couple years before his encounter with Michonne, where he cuts off his own hand and still fails to get away. The rest of the show seems to go by that same timeline, which is off by a year. So the time card at the start of episode 1 stating Rick cut off his hand 5 years after the bridge should be 6. Although, if they wanted to stand by the 5-year claim, that time could be compensated later, which I'll discuss shortly. But following the hand incident, he then spent the next year training under Okafor while secretly preparing his final escape. But after their confrontation following his discovery, Okafor knew where to find his family, Rick then officially submitted to the CRM and embraced his role in their ranks, while organizing the Cascadia base's construction as we catch up to him in the present, which is where you could probably insert that extra year if you wanted to stick with the episode 1 time card, leading to his long overdue reunion with Michonne 8 years after his disappearance, or around the 11-year, 6-month mark, where the rest of the series then takes place over a week or so until the Cascadia Summit. So there you have it. Rick made it home 11 years, 6 months post-outbreak. Right? Well, here we have yet another really big issue. If the final scene of Season 11 shows Daryl taking off from the Commonwealth around 12 years post-outbreak, why the fuck didn't he reunite with Rick? RJ and Judith look to be about the same age as where we left them off in the series finale, so what on earth is going on with Daryl Dixon? I really can't wrap my head around how this makes sense in any way unless Rick and Michonne took like 8 months to get home following the Cascadia Summit, which I guess is possible as they could have been busy reforming the CRM, but I thought the whole point was to get home to their kids, so I don't know, man. Daryl Dixon should take place around a few weeks to a few months after the series finale, as from what we can tell, he made his way up to Maine before getting shipped off to France. So unless I'm dumb and just can't see something obvious, this could be a pretty big mistake in the continuity. They either took many extra months to get back to their kids despite initially only hanging back to stop the Portland attack, or Daryl is fully aware Rick is back already and just hasn't mentioned it for some reason. It's kind of funny because if we did go by the broken timeline presented in the time cards throughout the series, the problem would actually be even worse. But lastly, we have Dead City, which is said to be the farthest ahead in the timeline we've seen so far. How long, you may ask? Well, judging by Herschel Jr.'s age and external interviews, we're about 5 to 6 years after the final scene in Season 11. Honestly, it's hard to believe it hasn't been more time, as Herschel seriously looks like he's 16 or 17 when he was around 8 or 9 the last time we saw him. But Lauren Cohan did say in an interview it's been 5 to 6 years since the Season 11 finale at least, so by all accounts, Dead City Season 1 takes place 17 to 18 years after the outbreak. And with the announcement Season 2 will feature yet another 6-month to 1-year time jump, we could be as far as 19 years post-outbreak in this universe. I always remember finding it so crazy how The Last of Us jumped 20 years ahead following its opening. My imagination always filled in all the horrors that could have unfolded in that time. So to me, it's insane the Walking Dead universe is finally approaching that time frame. But what do you guys think? Is my timeline accurate, or is it just as confusing as any other? I really tried my best to lay out all the evidence, so hopefully no mistakes were made. But if there was, let me know.
Tales episodes, I forgot. 1-5 was 15 years. That one was indeterminable. I can't see that one behind it.
In the comments down below. But that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, let me know to lay out all the evidence, so hopefully no mistake.
Okay, so Tales episode 2 took place on Monument Day. Okay, I can't see this one here. The Alpha 1 estimated 2 to 3. Don't know, and then of course whatever that one there is, I don't know.
Mistakes were made. But if there was, let me know in the comments down below.
This one's got to be pretty far ahead, I'm guessing. That's going to do it for me today,
folks. As always, thank you so much for watching.
Jeez. That is absolutely insane. That is one very crazy timeline. So now we are up to 20 years into The Walking Dead. With at least Dead City. 18, 19 years. Wow. That is crazy. 12 years for The Walking Dead, and then, with Dead City and stuff like that being the furthest one out, now they're up to 20 years. About 20 years. That is just that is just crazy. And the fact, like, some of these events and stuff like that took place over just, like, a couple of weeks, like a month. It's like, that's insane. The revolution, against the Commonwealth only took a week. It's like, that's insane to think that just happened in a week. And then some of these other things just happening so quickly. The first 5 episodes of season 1, 6 episodes was like 5 was like a week, literally a week. So like Rick wakes up and everything that happened in season 1 was just him just going through like an entire just week. That is crazy. Just imagine being Rick, waking up and all this stuff happens in just a week, in just 1 week. You wake up, you meet Morgan, you learn about this, you go to the police station, and then you go into Atlanta, you get in the tank and stuff like that. Then you find, Glenn finds you, and then you're doing the gut stuff, and then you're going up to the little group and stuff like that. You're finding Lori, you're finding Carl again. You're finding Shane, and then you go out for Merle and stuff like that, and then you encounter the Vatos and stuff, and then they're getting attacked as you're coming back, and then you're like, well, we gotta leave, and then you go to the CDC and you spend a day there, and then the CDC blows up, all in a week. That is, I mean, can you just imagine how crazy all that is? Because I'm filming this Wednesday, so Wednesday would be, I don't know, let's just say I'm Rick, I woke up Sunday. Wednesday, I don't know, we're in Atlanta looking for Merle, probably dealing with the Vatos right now, give or take. Well, maybe heading to Atlanta, I think Thursday when I post a video. That would be dealing with the Vatos. The group, an RV and stuff like that, gets attacked as we make it back. We'd say at nightfall. Friday, we would drive to the CDC, try to get in, spend the night, and then on Saturday, we're out of gas, out of fuel, the place is going to decontaminate, and then trying to beg with Dr. Jenner to let us out and stuff like that, and then getting in the RV and getting the hell out of there and watching as the CDC explodes on Saturday. Man, that is just, wow. But even still, yeah, it does get very confusing and stuff like that, especially with the ones who live, Rick's return, and then Daryl leaving and stuff like that. Yeah, that does seem a little, I don't know, a little off. I'm guessing they're just hoping like nobody figures it out and just, whatever. Because I'm sure Daryl would not have left if Rick was back. I doubt he would have left. He would have stayed. So I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, crazy timeline. Crazy timeline. And now when Dead City starts, we'll be about 20 years into the Walking Dead, the apocalypse, if you will. 20 years. It makes you wonder what, the Commonwealth looks like. What does Alexandria look like, Because we haven't seen them. Because we left off on the end of season 11 as, 11, 12 years into it? So, about 8 years since we've seen the Commonwealth and Alexandria and Hilltop. So, who knows what that place looks like, So, crazy timeline. Crazy timeline. Like I said, still can't believe some of that stuff happened in just a short amount of time. That's just crazy. But, yeah, anyways, there we go. There is the confusing timeline of the Walking Dead universe. That is confusing and crazy. So, let me know what you guys think. What would you guys think about this crazy timeline? Can you believe some of this stuff happened in such short amount of time? let me know. And yeah, other than that, leave me all your thoughts and comments. If there's any other videos you guys want me to check out, let me know. Leave me a link down below and I'll be happy to make a video on it. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links in the description box below. And other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.